Hello, everybody, and welcome to the August edition of the Kushmerek Connection. Thank you, as always, to the amazing team here at FATV for all that they do for our show and for the entire community, and obviously for hosting this show here in studio on Boulder Drive, right in downtown Fitchburg. Also want to thank Rebecca Haas, who does some of the amazing production here, as well as our intern Frank Gallo, who's been with us for the summer. That said, I want to turn. We have a guest in studio who in some ways needs no introduction, Peter Capodagli. Thank you so much for coming here in studio.
Pleasure to be here, Mike.
So Peter, you have a bunch of titles, but I think I'm going to introduce you as the proprietor and co-owner of the Boulder Art Gallery. How's that?
That's a great place to start.
But also the 2024 recipient of the Boulder Award.
Yes.
Congratulations again.
Thank you very much. Unexpected, but
so
great.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
So well deserved. Peter, I think we're going to go a lot of places here with this conversation. But first and foremost, I'd love to just start with the Boulder Art Gallery and talking a little bit about the history of arts and culture in our downtown and how the Boulder Art Gallery really fits within that that direction and that history.
Okay. Geez, hit me with a big question.
That's it, exactly.
Right off the bat, Mike. Fitchburg has quite a history with the arts, and it really, arts and culture, and it really does go back quite a ways. Even in the early 1800s, Fitchburg was quite a community that was involved with the arts. You could walk up and down Main Street during that time, and it would be dotted with theaters from Lower Main Street to Upper Main Street. So Fitchburg was well aware of theater. People would go to Nickelodeons. They would see live movies on stage theater. There'd be vaudeville acts. So it was very in tune with the theater. That was all really amplified in about 1845 when Alva Crocker brought the first railroad to Fitchburg. And all of a sudden, when that depot was built on Lower Main Street, and Fitchburg was able to see between 75 and 95 trains arriving every day at the depot, a lot of these people were coming from all over New England to experience the arts and culture of Fitchburg. And they could get off that train in the depot, and they could, some of them were here for a day, but many of them were here for multiple days. And they would stay at some of the greatest accommodations that we had. You could get off the train and visit the Hotel Raymond, the American House in Depot Square. In the middle of Main Street, there was the Johnsonia Hotel. A little further up Main Street, next to City Hall, there was the Fitchburg Hotel. And then in the Upper Common itself, there was the Rollstone House. Every one of these hotels had incredible dining, the greatest accommodations, and entertainment. So coupled with the theaters that were here and the entertainment in these grand hotels, Fitchburg was really a destination. However, I think what cemented Fitchburg as being the center of arts and culture in northern Worcester County was the Wallace family, who built the Wallace Library. And they not only called it the Wallace Library, but they called it the Library and Art Gallery. And that was in 1885.
Really forward thinking.
Oh, yeah. So in 1885, Fitchburg had a first-class art gallery on the upper floors of the library. And they displayed artwork from some of the noted artists throughout the country in that gallery. And it was special. It was an incredible place. Even artists as big as Eleanor Norcross had private shows there, and other big artists of the day. You also had in Fitchburg some of the finest sculptors, like Samuel Herbert Adams, who built in the Upper Common a public artwork, a fountain. And so Fitchburg was involved with the arts, and still is involved with the arts to this day, I guess you could say. I can think, being involved with the art gallery for so long and collecting a lot of vintage art over the years and being involved with history, I always see some of these very, very old paintings that have been brought into the gallery, and advertisements in old city directories, you would be amazed at the number of arts-related businesses that were on Main Street even at the turn of the century.
So what you're describing is really, something that holds water and holds weight against, some of these world-class cities at the time.
Yeah. It was a destination for arts and culture. Even in more modern times, people went to Main Street. There were dance studios that were set up for people. Marion Rice, for example, is one of them. Corliss is another. Of course, we had the Stratton Players and the New Players Theatre Guild that are located on Main Street, adding to the arts and culture scene. And you can't ever forget the Fitchburg Art Museum,
That's right.
which is a huge presence in the city. And getting involved to today, the new B.F. Brown Arts Complex that's going to be partnering with the Art Museum. That's huge.
Be one of only, I think, 4 communities in the Commonwealth that has artist preference housing, and those other 3 communities have max capacity, and it's really transformed the hearts of the communities around them that have those housing complexes. And so I have little doubt that when this project is finished, that the same will be true for Fitchburg.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that project.
Yeah.
I go home that way every day, and I just watch the buildings and watch for new progress, and they're doing such a first-class job on that whole complex.
What a perfect preservation of history, but also kind of ushering in, a tribute to the past, but also ushering in kind of that next future generation of people that will come here as artists and producers and of art.
Yeah. And that whole complex, of course, Mike, is going to be really helpful not only to the Art Museum, but Main Street again.
That's right.
Because that'll house about 60 different people, 60 families that are going to work and shop right on Main Street. So it's going to be a huge force for the city.
I'm excited for those buildings to be complete, which is really, at this point, just months away, not years, and really being able to see the product of almost a decade of work by New View Communities and the Fitchburg Art Museum to bring this through to fruition. Just amazing.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what made you, with all of that history in mind, and obviously your passion for knowing and understanding and researching this history, what made you want to then create your own art gallery at a time too where Fitchburg was really at a crossroads? And
Well, all of the arts-related connections that came previous to us opening the gallery didn't have a huge impact on our decision to do this. We knew we were going to kind of do this from the beginning. When I retired in 2007, and my wife Ann retired in 2009, we knew we wanted to do something. We didn't want to just sit around and do absolutely nothing. We wanted to keep busy. But we started to toss around ideas as to what we would like to do. I know I had always been interested in art. I was a collector of vintage art. I had certain artists that I always kind of gravitated towards and collected. My wife Ann was a watercolor artist, and she taught art for 35 years in the Fitchburg Public Schools, with much of that time being spent at Fitchburg High. So when it became time to think about, geez, what can we do? The idea of opening up a small art gallery where she could paint and have a studio really appealed to us. Plus, it was a kind of business that didn't take up a lot of our time. We could do it on a kind of a part-time basis, enjoy it, and not worry too much about, do we have to make a lot of money to pay bills? So it was kind of a fun thing to do. And it really has worked out fantastic.
Place for your passion, but also still allows you to, to keep as busy as you want to be.
Right? Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
So you're also a subject matter expert in addition to kind of the local cultural history and being a connoisseur of local art. You're also really one of the subject matter experts around Ivor Johnson bicycles. Can you talk to us a little bit about Ivor Johnson and what he meant to the city, but also what he meant to the cycling industry and I think you have a little bit of a collection as well.
I do. I have an incredible collection of Ivor Johnson bicycles, And that certainly has been one of my passions over the years. And the way I kind of got involved with collecting their bicycles is I had always been a Fitchburg memorabilia collector.
Sure.
So that anything that had a Fitchburg name on it, I was interested in. And I can remember one day visiting an antique shop in Maine and seeing an Ivor Johnson, just a badge that went on the front of the bicycle. And the badge said, Ivor Johnson Arms and Cycle Company, Fitchburg, Mass. I said, wow, I said, I've got to have this. So I bought that and added it to my collection. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, geez, it would be kind of nice to have one of their bicycles also. So I searched around a little bit. I was able to locate a beautiful racing bike from a collector in California. I had it shipped to Fitchburg, set it up in the gallery, and kind of walked by it often and looked at it and studied it. And the more I looked at it and the more I studied it, the more I thought, you know, I should get another one. And after doing that, that was it. I was hooked, and my collection just grew and grew and grew from that point.
Do you have one of the largest collections of Ivor Johnson bicycles?
Yeah, I would say yes, because I'm the only nut that's crazy enough to do it. I kind of specialize in that bicycle. But yes, Ivor Johnson had a massive presence in Fitchburg on River Street. They manufactured firearms and bicycles, but also at one point in time had one of the largest sporting goods companies in the entire world. And they employed hundreds and hundreds of people in Fitchburg and were incredibly successful over the years.
And I understand, so the firearms business at one point was one of the largest in America, right?
Yeah, and Fitchburg was very lucky to have not only them in town as being one of the largest in the entire country, but very lucky in other ways. It had several other businesses that were located in Fitchburg that were the largest in the world. And Ivor Johnson was one of them. We had Fitchburg Paper,
right,
largest manufacturer of paper in the world. Simon Saw and Steel, largest manufacturer of cutting tools in the world. Independent Law Company, same thing. Fitchburg just had all of those industries back then that were just massive and growing.
Gilded age of Fitchburg.
It really was. Yeah. And there were so many more.
So, so known for maybe its Victorian architecture in Fitchburg. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about some of the buildings for you that are really near and dear to you as you kind of walk down Main Street?
Sure.
There's some that are particularly special.
You know, Mike, my interest in Victorian architecture started very early on. Yeah. And I have to attribute that to my mom and dad, because they bought a home on Atlantic Avenue in Fitchburg that was a massive Victorian home built by H.M. Francis. And of course, Atlantic Avenue was completely dotted with similar homes. That's right. And as a young boy going into that house and growing up there, it was kind of like, wow. I didn't know anything about architecture back then, but when you lived in that house, it was kind of like, wow, what beautiful stained glass windows. What beautiful woodwork, carved woodwork, and this grand staircase that went from the first floor to the second floor. The house was special. And I knew even as a young boy, wow, this is something special. I had friends in the neighborhood that had similar homes. So when I went into them and I was playing with them, I could walk into their house and, oh, wow, you have stained glass windows also. Right. They're a little different, but they're beautiful. Wow, look at that woodwork. So I was in tune with that, even as a very, very young boy. But I didn't really know what I was looking at, really.
Sure.
As I got older and I could experience Main Street and I started to walk Main Street, all of those things came back to me, and I noticed, wow, even Main Street itself is dotted with that kind of architecture. You can start right on Lower Main Street with some of the churches like Rollstone Congregational Church, Christ Church, the Congregational Church in the Upper Common, the Brownstone, and even First Parish Church. They exhibited a lot of those same features. back then, of course, Fitchburg had a lot of families in Fitchburg that were wealthy. They were members of these churches, and they helped not only build them, but supply these churches with all those Victorian features. I can remember walking up Main Street and seeing some of the buildings like the Armory and the old courthouse and the post office. Those were absolutely gorgeous buildings. And in the Upper Common, there was the old Sentinel building and the Fitchburg Savings Bank building that had architecture that was second to none.
Right.
So Fitchburg really had more than its share of incredible architecture. And the reason it did, Mike, I think is fairly simple. It's because people that were here early on had money. And these people, when they were going to build a family home or they were going to build a business block downtown, they wanted something special. And they had the money to do it. Yeah. And they were not satisfied getting a local builder to build something or ordering a bungalow out of the Sears catalog. They went to the best architects that were available.
Well, they owned world-class institutions, and they wanted their homes and their businesses to reflect that, right?
A great and simple example of that is Crocker Field. When Alva Crocker decided to build Crocker Field for the city of Fitchburg, he hired his friends and the best architects in the country, the old Olmsted brothers. He went to the best because that's the kind of stuff that he was doing in Fitchburg.
And we are so fortunate as a city. Yes, that after an economic decline of industries leaving, hard industries leaving in an exodus over the course of 40, 50, 60 years.
Sure.
To still have so many of these gems, and now Fitchburg is resurgent. Undoubtedly, we're moving back in the right direction. The economy is growing here. The downtown businesses are moving back in, and we still have some of the best parts of our history at a time where we can really start to preserve them. And we have what so few other American cities have, and what so few other Massachusetts cities have. And just think of it as being incredibly fortunate. Mm-hmm. And if we do this right, we can really embrace that history while moving into the future.
Oh, absolutely. When I look back at Fitchburg in general, and I look back at what has been lost, it's sad. We've lost so much architecture in buildings that were just incredibly special. And I guess we didn't have the foresight back then to really try to preserve these buildings. Right. And that's why it's so important today to preserve what's left. I was extremely happy, for example, when they decided to renovate City Hall and bring that back to life. And today that's a special building. That could have been razed.
Right.
That could have been gone forever.
There's not too many city halls like that in America.
No, that was a beauty. And that's why I'm so excited about the BF complex. Because just by preserving those buildings, you're preserving 3 architecturally beautiful buildings and making sure they're preserved forever. The Crocker Field restoration, preserving that whole complex down there. And that's all. It all fits into the big picture that we're trying to preserve in Fitchburg.
So, what's your hope as we move into the future? As we look to preserve. What else do you want to see us do? Like, how else can we embrace our past to make for a more prosperous future?
Well, I think Fitchburg is kind of on the right track by trying to embrace things like arts and culture. I think that's a good lead into a lot of other things. Sure. I see Main Street springing back a little bit, and I'd like to see Fitchburg, focus on arts, entertainment, culture, recreation, restaurants, and I think that's a good look for Main Street. Main Street is never going to be what it was. It's never going to have the retail stores on it that we once had, but it certainly can be exciting, and it can be busy in a different way. One of the things that I think will help out tremendously, and that's being done now in some ways, is to bring living spaces close to or on Main Street. And in that way, you have a built-in audience that want to go right out of their front doors and go into a restaurant or visit a little shop or specialty place that might be on Main Street. That's the kind of direction I think that we should be heading.
And we know, throughout the nation, and what's really prevalent in Massachusetts is, people want to, and particularly young families want and expect to live directly close to those amenities and in a downtown. And so we're starting to see that reverse from the major cities down to smaller cities and suburbs of living in downtown and wanting to be close to the action. And we're seeing those models of success that work so well elsewhere. And there's a real focus right now on delivering that new generation of housing directly in the downtown. And we don't need to build new buildings to accomplish that. No. We have, as you've highlighted, so many of those gems from the Gilded Age, and so many of those gems from the past century that just need some TLC to get us there. And if we can deliver hundreds more units to our downtown of market rate housing, and it's not just new and young families and young professionals. I think that trend is true across the board. Of people just want to be close to their downtowns. They want to be able to walk out the door to the coffee shop, and then for dinner later on that night, be able to go and have a great meal and a good cocktail.
Oh, yeah. I really think, Mike, that people are growing tired of the malls and the mall experience.
That's it.
And they're looking for something a little more intimate and a little more exciting and a special place. And I think Main Streets really can offer that. With the variety of different kinds of businesses that they can house. I can tell you that I have a couple of apartments that are above the gallery in the upper common of Fitchburg. And of course, I've had that for many years now. And as soon as I talk about renting those, and I mention upper common, incredible responses. People want to be on Main Street.
That's right.
They want to live on Main Street. And if they had a choice to live anywhere else but close to Main Street, they'd select being close to where the action is.
I absolutely agree. Part of that action is something that you've really worked hard to develop and to create with the Rock Walk.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I remember the first time you mentioned it, and I thought, oh, this is a wonderful idea. And you really had a vision for kind of executing a plan that would make it not just a walk that you can do, but a walk that people would want to be a part of, and one that would be a little bit more formalized. And I remember thinking, it's going to take a lot of work. We'll see, Peter. If you could tell people a little bit, hopefully folks already know, and I know there's going to be an FATV special about this soon. But if you could really tell people a little bit about maybe the history of the Rock Walk and the work that you've done.
Sure. Well, this concept of the Rock Walk came about 5 to 7 years ago, and it basically came about because of the Rollstone Boulder.
Sure.
We had named the gallery. We had to come up with a name for the gallery, so we knew we were close to the boulder. So we said, well, let's try Boulder Art Gallery. That sounds pretty good. So that's kind of where it started. Once we named the gallery, I started to do some investigations into the history of the Rollstone Boulder. And I said, wow, the more I learned about this rock that's sitting in our upper common, the more I thought, wow, this thing has got an incredible amount of history attached to it. And I want you to think about this for a minute, Mike. How many other communities that you know of would have 3 special and serious attempts to save a boulder? Fitchburg has done it. And I realized at that time that
a city full of people stubborn as a rock.
Right? Yeah. Exactly, yeah. I realized, gee, it's sitting in the upper common now, but it once was on the top of Rollstone Hill, directly on the summit. And I thought, well, geez, between where it is now and where it was, there's an awful lot of history. Yeah. And it's walkable. You can start in the upper common and walk to where it used to be in the matter of a half hour, right from the downtown. So I started to think, okay, we could maybe talk about this site, And all of a sudden, it just blew up. There's so much history between the two structures there that I put it together, and it has worked out absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Can you talk about the work that's gone into?
Oh, geez, yeah. Very early on, I realized that I couldn't do this by myself, and I was going to have to get in touch with some group that would help me. And I was introduced to the Fitchburg Greenway Committee. And I presented this idea to the Fitchburg Greenway Committee in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, and they immediately loved it. They thought this was great. And it's a good way to preserve the character of a big tract of land. It's right in the center of the city. So they started working with me, and we started to do some initial plans, and they started to get some small grants to make some improvements. And little by little, using that grant money, we've been able to improve the hill, improve the trails, and come up with a comprehensive 3-stage plan to really make the walk a special walk. And we're at this point, Mike, we're still on phase 1 of the plan, of a 3-phase plan. And moving really at a snail's pace. When I first got involved with this, with the Greenway Committee, the way I kind of looked at it, well, we can get this done. We can do this pretty quick. And they told me right from day one, this is going to be a 5 or 6 year plan. And I thought, oh, we can get it done much quicker than that.
Right,
but
yeah.
no. We're in at least year 6 or 7 and really nowhere near done.
Well, what do you need? How can people help?
Well, the biggest barrier to this project getting done really is funding.
Sure.
You know, we have so much to do and so little funds.
Yeah.
And the grants that we can apply for through the Greenway Committee tend to be fairly small. So we're looking for areas where we can somehow get a little bit more money so we can get the project done.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Peter, you're one of those folks. I have 2 degrees in history, and every time I talk to you, I feel like I'm learning more about the history of the place that I call home. And
Yeah.
As you talk, I find myself starting to lean in every time. You know, and typically we do 15-minute spots for our guests. And I knew 30 minutes would just be scratching the surface, and here we are.
Sure.
We're about 30 minutes in, and I feel like we could go on for another hour.
Yeah.
And so I've resolved, I think we're going to need to have you back on the show at some point. You've talked before, and I'd love to have you do kind of that other trip down memory lane of starting it from Morin Square to the Upper Common. And so we'll have to have you back on the show, and we can do a little bit more of that.
Will do.
Fantastic. Well, Peter Capodagli, thank you so much for coming in studio and joining me on the show. To our viewers back at home, thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Thank you to FATV for having us. And folks, enjoy the end of your summer. We'll see you in September.
Pleasure being